Welcome, everybody, to another Stellar Cybersecurity Spotlight. Today, I'm really excited to have our guest, Todd Willoughby from RSM US, here to talk with me. Hello, Todd.
Hey, Kevin, how are you?
Thank you for taking the time to chat with us today about some of the new challenges up and coming in the InfoSec space that we're in. So, Todd, now we're in 2024, and a lot has changed over the past year in cybersecurity. A lot we're anticipating is going to be changing, and even more this year. What are some of the maybe some challenges in threat detection that you're seeing from RSM's point of view?
Yeah, Kevin, I think there's some ongoing trends that are still prevalent in the industry, right? Ransomware attacks continue to increase. I think until we do something to deprioritize the financial aspect of those are going to continue to be prevalent in the industry. I think we're obviously talking about social engineering and phishing schemes that are going on in the industry. Business email compromise, again, is another $1 billion a year industry for threat actors. Those are also challenging as well, and I don't think they're going to necessarily decrease either, because they seem to be, really low levels of low-hanging fruit there to get into environments, wreak havoc, and then, again, profit again on the back end of that for threat actors. Again, going back to profitability of these attacks, as well as cloud-based threats, right? Those are going to continue to either increased or lack of visibility on the service provider side or the client's end, or even not only that, just institutional knowledge or knowledge around the program that they're using are going to continue to increase as well. Like, the threat actors are going to hope that they're going to continue to blend in on the back end of that and not get noticed, right? And oftentimes they're successful doing that. And I think one of those types of buzzwords that's going on right now is like AI powered attacks. I know there's been some reporting around some very good proof of concepts. The folks over at Highest Intel, Highest Labs have been, Black Mamba, and I think iSpy is another one they really demoed that show like the real proof of concept that these things are real, they do exist, but they're under very particular um, sets of defined, guardrails around them, right? So while I think they're possible, they're not, which should also be people's worry keeping them up at night, right? So I think AI is kind of one of those topics that, take it with a grain of salt for a little bit, but still continue to do what we're doing as far as getting good at detecting commodity based, right? Supply chain attacks are also another one, right? That's another big focal point. You've seen, some of the software distribution attacks that have happened this past year from various different vendors and MSPs getting attacked, right? You get in as a threat actor, you get access into one of these environments, you get a lot of targets downstream from that, right? So it's a one to many relationship. Compromise one, get access to many. That's very lucrative, obviously, again, back to profitability. And I think it goes to show organizations that, and there's some other topics we can parlay off of that, proliferation of data. Clients don't know where their data is being shared, who has access to it, things like that, that go into a lot of that as well. But it goes to show that from a threat actor perspective, they will find a way in, right? It's not a matter of how or if, it's a matter of when, right? It's kind of a cliche term, but if they can't come at you directly, they're going to come at you through a vendor or a third party provider, or some sort of API, maybe, right? Things like that. But they're going to, where there's a will, there's a way, and there was motivation, right?
No, I think it's interesting. A lot of the points you brought up, specifically, a lot of the theme of just you're talking right now was really around visibility in general. And I want to ask, how security analysts and security professionals in general, and organizations for that matter, should really be looking in 2024 about where to start, maybe investing wiser and kind of pointing in those directions about maximizing visibility and effectiveness of their security programs.
Yeah, again, right. We talked about proliferation of data and data sources, right? Just because you can collect data on something doesn't necessarily mean you should, right? Again, if you collect it, you have to secure it, right? That makes a defender's job, an analyst's job, much more harder, right? And especially around some of the institutional knowledge, especially if you're hiring an MSP or MSSP or another provider that's not an in-house team, it makes it very difficult to understand why that data is being collected and for what purposes. And ultimately, like, if we say everything is important, nothing is important ultimately at the end of the day. If you say all this data is important, well, that's not necessarily true, right? But again, legal regulatory, changes that have happened recently make it harder for defenders to respond to that kind of those events and that data and how it's postured within the organization, what its use is really for. Um, it makes their job harder. And that being said, one of the things that Stellar is doing a very good job in taking all those disparate sets of data, normalizing them into a single taxonomy, a single set of data to normalize against, to make detections against, is a good thing. And then doing the basics, right? That's another big thing I touch on is if you can detect what activity is known bad or known to be abnormal, that makes a SOC analyst's job a lot easier, especially making the initial detection. Putting together the pieces still requires all the additional data sets, but getting that initial detection fired off and getting, say, a trailhead started is really part of the challenge, right? And I think Stellar does a good job of that, especially getting those foundational sets of rules.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time again. Really appreciate it.
Great, thanks.